A legacy is what you inherit from your ancestors. Now, the best legacies of all are not money. The best legacies are the spirit and the character of those who came before us. Today, I want to highlight one such person who has given us a legacy worthy of living up to. You can find part of his story in this book called God's Hand Over Hume. This is the story of Hume Lake Christian Conference Center in California, and it tells its story from the beginning of the 1900s, when it was a logging camp, to the present moment. But the page I want to call your attention to is page number 73, which highlights a man named John Strain, a man of vision and enthusiasm. And John Strain has left you a priceless legacy. Here are a few pages from this book. The Lord's Days. From the early 1900s to 1945, Long Meadow had encountered a tremendous transformation. The gentle rolling meadow in the quiet mountains had become a lake with the hustle and bustle of a logging camp and a saloon at one end. The lumber days and the liquor days were about ready to give way to a new era, the Lord's Days. It all began on a hot summer day. Walt Workentine's chores on his Dinuba farm were going well, and he was happy as he wheeled his farm tractor up and down the fields, plowing furrows in the rich soil. Suddenly, Frances, Walt's wife, called from the farmhouse telling him that John Strain wanted to see him. To be sure, the words of the message from John were, "I want to pray with you about something." John was a high school teacher at Reedley. Walt's long friendship with him was fairly well molded at that time. Walt had been a student in one of Mr. Strain's classes. Both shared a strong bond of Christian fellowship. Consequently, it was with some concern that Walt hurriedly cleaned up, put on some town clothes, and was off to the little church in Reedley to pray with his friend, John. The meeting consisted of more than just John and himself. There were, as Walt glanced around questioningly, Herman Pettit, Dave Hoffer, Dave Thiessen, and John. John came abruptly to the point. He and Herman felt a sudden and strong need for a closer relationship with God. A revival movement was needed, John told them, to fully accomplish in the San Joaquin Valley what God wanted them to do. A humorous idea. Lease space at Sequoia Lake had been used satisfactorily, but a campground was needed now for the permanent and exclusive use of the Dinuba Reedley group. John Strain, Henry Martins, Herman Pettit, Dave Thiessen, and Walt Workentine visited a number of possible campsites, including Heartland and Aspen Hollow near Hume Lake. On one trip to the mountains, John Strain and Walt Workentine and Frances Workentine visited the Hume Lake Resort owned by Hume Larson. Almost in jest, Walt suggested they stop to see if Hume Larson would consider selling. John Strain, always eager to pounce on a new idea, was out of his car quickly to pose the question to Hume. He was startled to find out that, yes, Hume would sell for a flat $200,000. The pleasant surprise ended as fast as it started with the mention of the price. To fill in the awkward moment, John volunteered that the group they represented could not possibly pay more than $85,000 for a campsite. The camp hunters quickly resumed their homeward trip. A chuckle or two went up as they thought of the $85,000 they were, according to John, authorized to offer. With the entire group, even a tenth of that amount would have presented another major problem. So they joked and chuckled, and each one wistfully recalled the lake, the buildings, the swimming, the boating. And they did a bit of personal praying on the subject. A step of faith. The next step was a visit by the realtor representing the group to negotiate a lower price with Hume Larson. The trip was a big success, as the price was reduced to $150,000. But even more, when the realtor mentioned to Hume that he was donating his commission to the cause, further price adjustments were made to set the actual selling price at a conveniently rounded $140,000. This proved to be too much for the youth camp hunters to ignore. After 5 months of negotiations with Hume Larson, the 11 men on the board called a meeting and met in Fresno on January 9, 1946. After a great deal of deliberation, one of the men made the following unforgettable motion. Mr. Chairman, on the strength of Philippians 4:19, I move that we purchase the 320 acres of property situated on Hume Lake for a Bible conference ground for the price of $125,000, or not to exceed $150,000. $30,000 to be paid in 60 days, $20,000 1 year later, and the remainder over a period of 10 years. The motion was seconded and carried. The men knew, even as they voted, that Philippians 4:19 states, "My God shall supply all your needs according to his riches in glory by Christ Jesus." A Fresno newspaper announced on February 3, 1946, that a purchase had been made by Fresno Christian businessmen of 320 acres of lakeshore property, which included the Hume Lake Hotel, store, service stations, post office, 22 cottages, and 22 boats. One incident is recalled to signify the meaning of those words, "shall supply." This incident was recorded later by the Hume Lake Conference staff in one of their publications. Monday morning, April 2, 1946, a worried campaign manager sat in the office of the Fresno Bible House. At 9 o'clock, he was due to meet with the owner with $25,000. $5,000 was already in escrow. God had been good. Many generous friends had been raised up. Over $50,000 had been refused and offered loans. The enlarged board of directors had held a wonderful prayer and praise session the previous Saturday, setting a precedent for each subsequent board meeting that it will include a prayer time with every man participating. Every director had given sacrificially, but $1,700 was still lacking. The morning mail had brought in a $1,000 check. One director had missed his Saturday meeting. A Fresno Bible House employee rushed in waving a check from a church in Kingsburg. At 10 minutes to 9, another board member began taking checks and money from his pocket, the gift of a congregation in Easton. At 9 o'clock, the money totaled $30,200. Strangely enough, the extra $200 was required for insurance charges for the transfer of title. As with so many other startling developments surrounding the creation, development, and ultimate use of Hume Lake, here again was the fulfillment of a promise to supply every need.
If you follow Jesus, you're following Jesus toward holiness. That's the destination that Jesus is leading you toward, so that you might be formed into the image and the likeness of the Son.
This is your legacy. Know therefore that the Lord your God is God. He is the faithful God, keeping his covenant of love to 1,000 generations of those who love him and keep his commandments.